I'm responding to the claim that traditional cars are better alternative to hybrid cars. So my opponent's secondary claims are that hybrids are most costly than gas-powered vehicles, that there are false impressions and statistics of hybrid cars, and that hybrids generate pollution and emit dangerous toxins. In response, my claim is that using traditional cars is not a better, relating to cost effectiveness and the environmental friendliness, alternative to using hybrid cars. And this is because hybrids are not any more costly than gas-powered vehicles, that statistics of hybrid cars are accurate, and that hybrids should not pollute any more than traditional cars. So for my first point, hybrids are not only more costly than gas-powered vehicles. So my opponent mentions that hybrids are not necessarily cost-effective because buying the car itself can be expensive, and then remaking money based off gasoline will take time. However, the U.S. government has been supporting consumer purchase of hybrid vehicles in the forms of federal income tax deductions before 2006 and federal income tax credits since then. According to PhD Ari an expertise in econometrics. Jonathan Klein, an expertise in environmental and energy economics and applied microeconomics, did a survey with Top Line Strategy Group where 90% or 118 of the respondents responded to flyers placed on the windshields of their Priuses. With the question of how happy are you with your Prius, 88% responded very happy, 12% somewhat happy, and 0% for both happy and unhappy. Different household incomes for the participants are almost evenly distributed. It is an assumption, but the results of the survey may support or say something about the cost effectiveness of the hybrids. For my second claim, in response to my opponent's secondary claim, the statistics of hybrid cars are accurate. My opponent says that humans have been exaggerating and that they have given false impressions of how conservative the hybrid vehicle is. A business and economic columnist of the New York Times says that hybrids have most overblown mileage ratings in the auto industry, but according to New, the National Energy Policy Report says that the fuel economy has improved, emissions have been reduced, and that the hybrid has been considered a promising technology. According to John Kelly of Discovery's How Stuff Works, engineers have used a number of other design elements to increase the fuel efficiency of hybrids. Not only does the Atkinson cycle engine increase fuel efficiency, but other design elements as well. He says that hybrids have regenerative braking, aerodynamic designs, lighter weight to decrease the use of fuel, efficient tires, and a choice of driving modes that allow you to switch to an economy mode. So we humans can also exaggerate at the other end, like when we keep our focus on the engine itself. My opponent also talks about a reporter who drove a Volkswagen Jetta from Detroit to Washington, D.C., and then drove it back from Detroit in a Toyota Prius hybrid. He said that his study showed that the mileage in the Jetta was better than the Prius. However, this is only one example, and other factors may have also contributed to the results. So how do we know if the report is biased, or what routes did he take, or how did he drive, or how much traffic was there, and how much did he use his brakes? So for my last point, in response to the third secondary claim, my claim is that hybrids should not pollute any more than traditional cars. My opponent argues that hybrid vehicles also emit dangerous toxins, but for hybrid cars, what are these toxins, and how can we know how much of these toxins are emitted? According to News, hybrid technology has been considered a promising tool in the U.S. to reduce carbon dioxide emissions and air pollution. And David Roos from Discovery's House of Words says that hybrid cars do emit the same greenhouse gases as traditional cars, but since hybrid cars are much more fuel efficient than conventional cars, they require less gas to cover the same distance. The Roos says that the U.S. Energy Information Administration sets the average mileage for hybrid at 38.7 miles per gallon compared to 26.7 for a gas-only vehicle. Lastly, in response to the third secondary claim, there are people who would buy hybrid cars not for the environment's sake, but to save fuel. According to Jonathan Klein, through his group study, 73% of Prius buyers have strong financial motivations for their purchase. If both traditional cars and hybrid contribute to pollution, then better alternatives to using hybrid and traditional cars are probably just to walk or to use a bike. As I looked through articles about the hybrid cars, a lot of them talked about finances and economical issues, than how much a hybrid cars can keep the environment clean. So in conclusion, evidence show that hybrid vehicles are not as costly as gas-powered vehicles, and that statistics of hybrid cars can be accurate, and that hybrids are more fuel efficient than traditional vehicles. So traditional cars are not better relating to cost effectiveness and environmental friendliness alternative to hybrid cars. So when you buy a hybrid car, you're not necessarily doing more harm to the environment nor helping it. But when it comes to cost effectiveness and the concern of using more fuel, hybrids are a better alternative to gas-powered vehicles. Thank you.
All right, well, structurally everything is fine at the beginning. You indicate what the main proposition is and what the secondary claims were. Basically, you follow that structure and use the same numerical signposts as you go along. When you have multiple claims on those other points, I think you need to have a little clearer structure for those points because it does get a little complicated sometimes. But most of the time, you do a good job telling us what your counterclaim is on those points. Now, the evidence that you use to support the counterclaims, I'm not always sure it adequately answers either the advocate's argument or proves your point. For instance, when you talk about the hybrids not really being more costly, you talk about how they were subsidized prior to 2006. Well, that's 6 years ago. If they're not subsidized anymore, are they in fact cost competitive? And then the other piece of evidence that you have there is satisfaction of the people who purchased Priuses, which does not necessarily indicate financial satisfaction. So I'm not exactly sure that you've addressed the financial issue. The cost differences between hybrids and traditional automobiles are never spoken of directly on that point. When you get to the next point and you're discussing about whether or not the numbers on hybrids, miles per gallon, that sort of thing is exaggerated, your evidence basically says that it's promising, and then it talks about how the Atkinson engine has all these additional advantages, but you don't tell us that the Atkinson engine is a new innovation, how it's more widely utilized in hybrids, and how it saves or increases the gas mileage. I think in essence, it's just very generic information about how hybrids are supposed to work. You do have a little bit of a challenge to the advocate's example of driving the cars across country, the Prius one direction and the Jet in the other direction. I kind of understand the criticism that you're making here. I think there's a simpler way to talk about it. You've got all these other things. Well, did they drive in the same conditions, so on and so forth? Here's a simple one. Look, if they drove the conventional car downhill and they drove the hybrid car uphill all the way back, of course you're going to